We need a martial code of conduct. An entire life code. When you live by a code of conduct, not a rule book that binds you, but a spiritual code of conduct and higher understanding, when you operate from a place of understanding, and all you're getting, get understanding, when you operate from that code of conduct, then everywhere you go, and everything you do, becomes perfect. Now let me explain what I mean. A samurai king. When you see the salute, the warrior, the fist, and the scholar, the open hand, the body and the mind, come together in a salute. We are having the best of both worlds. You can imagine the king, the emperor. He's been schooled, private tutors, he's been trained, he's got wealth in abundance, he understands diplomacy, he understands benevolence and mercy, he understands military strategy. And you take the samurai, loyalty, bravery, honor, physical skill, martial skill, prowess, fighting ability, swordsmanship, archery, martial arts. So you're putting together the warrior here and the scholar here, a samurai king. Now, what's the first thing that people see? They see you, they see your energy. They'll see that right away. How you carry yourself, your carriage, how you walk. Hold on a minute. When you stand somewhere, you're letting off an energy. Remember the last DVD we talked about going into a room when someone's angry? And they go into a room and you can just feel it. You can just feel it. They don't have to say or do anything. You can just feel those vibes. That's energy. And there's always energy. You're always giving and receiving energy. Now, when you see someone has a good energy, and you might say, there's all this brain boogie and psychobabble, 1,000 words a minute. We think at a rate almost as fast as the speed of light. You don't think at the rate that you're hearing me now. You're thinking about many things at once, consciously and subconsciously. When you see someone and their energy, you make judgments. Well, you shouldn't judge people on how they look. Actually, you should. You can't judge a book by its cover. Yes, you can. You should judge. You're constantly judging whether you know it or not. Why not take volitional control? Why not take intentional control and use it tactically and strategically? You're making judgments based on your programming. So when you see a person, their carriage tells you so much about them. But what will tell you even more is when they begin to speak. Remember, everyone is a genius until you hear them speak. The moment you hear them speak, you know that this person is stupid. Not only the way they talk. Now I'll use simplicity. I'll say words like gonna. You're gonna have to change. I know it's going to. But I can use current vocabulary and vernacular to get my point across so that you understand it. Simplicity is a key here. And I don't want to confuse you with vague concepts. So you'll see how they carry themselves, their carriage, how they walk. Now, are they walking like this? Okay? Puffery? No, the subdued man, the man who really has that strength and power, will almost try to tone it down so he doesn't scare. But if he needs to just put it out there just a little to make you step back, he can do so. The man who has self-control, who is cohesive, lets off an energy that you respect or fear. Now, when you speak, you need to have the words of a king. Now, the words of a king are constitution. The words of a peasant or a subject is conversation. Again, I'll repeat that. The words of a king are constitution. Think about it. Constitution, our constitution, certain rights you have. Constitution, what something is made of. When your words speak, your words are constitution, they're law. That's the words of a king. The words of a peasant are conversation. Yip yap, chit chat, chit chat. Okay? So if you want to join those babbling talk people, or do you want to be like a king? That means you'll use your words carefully. You'll speak in a manner that is polite yet firm, and you won't engage in idle chit chat. Then your words become very, very powerful. Now combine that with a knowledge of language patterns. Combine that with a knowledge of programming. And the world is your oyster. So remember, the words of a king are constitution. They create. They're like law. They're respected. They're beheld. They inspire. Oh, wow, can you believe he said that? 20 years ago today. Those words. Give me liberty or give me death. Those beautiful words. The words of a king are constitution. If you're going to be a king inside, a benevolent, honorable, noble samurai king who wins every battle, who wins every goal, you're going to have to speak like a king and not like a peasant. Idle conversation. Now there are times strategically for small talk. Your friends who you love, your family who you love. It is not about ceremonial contrivance where you're holding yourself and acting like a king and speaking from your memory. Remember we talked about the subconscious, the PMS? That's mechanical. And if you're mechanical and it's forced, people will know that. People will sense something false about you. You've got to be genuine. And when you make this change internal, you become genuine. You become real. And then they just sense a power and they're magnetized to you. The words of a king are constitution. The words of a subject or a peasant is conversation. Now here's a few things that can help you in your speech. First of all, voice inflection. What do I mean by voice inflection? For example, if I say, Doug kicked the cat. Doug kicked the cat. 4 words. Now, if I inflect, Doug kicked the cat, what is that saying? Doug kicked the cat. I'm saying, John didn't kick the cat. I didn't kick the cat. Doug kicked the cat. Now, if I say to you, Doug kicked the cat. He kicked him. Didn't hit him. Didn't shoot him. Didn't eat him. He kicked the cat. Now, if I say, Doug kicked the cat. He kicked the one. He kicked the cat. The super one. He kicked the big one. Or if I say, Doug kicked the cat. He didn't kick the dog. He didn't kick the rat. He didn't kick the chair. He didn't kick you. He kicked the cat. Do you see voice inflection on each word? So, for example, when you say to someone, hey, you want to go to dinner? How about, I'd like to see you for dinner tonight. What time can I pick you up? Better yet, let's go right now. Do you see the difference? Voice inflection. And another thing too, never end on an up note, always end on a down note. So you lack authority when you end on an up note, that's pleading. Okay? Hold on a minute here. When you plead, no one respects that. When you plead, you've already surrendered, haven't you? Officer, could you please not give me a ticket? Are you going to give me a ticket? Versus, I know you're thinking about giving me a ticket, but I really just wasn't paying attention. I'm a good driver. Could you give me a break? See the difference? No one respects your pathetic whining. Well, are you going to call me? Well, when can I see you again? Don't end on an up note, end on a down note. Call me by Friday. If you don't, I'll jump out the window. No, just kidding. But you can use things like that. Those are called dudders. Okay, we'll get into that later in the seduction area. You can use certain shocks and dudders. For example, I have no use for you if you won't obey me. We'll get into that later. It's powerful, powerful stuff. Trust me, go with this. By the time you get through these DVDs, you'll understand everything I'm talking about, and you'll go out there and you'll use it. You'll use it in negotiating. If you're a Fortune 500 executive, you'll use this on the negotiation table, or you'll use this on the phone brokering a deal, or you'll use this with a waitress you want to go out with. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can use it anywhere, and it's awesome. Awesome. So remember, never end on an up note, okay, because that's pleading. Always end on a down note, because it's authority, and it's final. Does that make sense? Is that fair? Notice the questions I'm asking. Does that make sense? Is that fair? Bob? Yes? Can you hear me? Yes? When you ask questions that can only be answered yes, it's a way of communicating like a king. Now, you also need to carry yourself with authority. My brother once said to me, I forget, he saw some famous old-time actor walking down the street. And he said, wow, I saw this guy, and he just walked with such authority. I mean, everyone, no, it wasn't the awe of the fame, because that's worthless, but there was something just about an authority. That when you walk, you should move with authority. You should know where you're going. You don't want to be Bambi getting off the subway in New York City. Okay? You need to look like you know where you're going, and better yet, how about really knowing where you're going? The determined mind, life opens a path for one who is determined. It almost like overripe fruit falling into your hand. What you want will fall into your hand when you know what you want, where you're going, how to get it, how to get there, and you remain objective and emotionally detached. I can tell you right now that one way to win the battleground of the soul, control of your soul, is to never be moved by praise or persecution. Then you have authority. If your emotions are subject to anyone come up and disapproving you, if your feelings are subject to anyone's approval or disapproval, then you are a subject. Then you're not a king. Do you understand what I'm telling you? We need to move beyond technique. Moving beyond technique. Remember we talked about unconscious competent. To where you're so alert that you dominate and you never have to think about it. You never have to, it's subconscious. Remember primitive, mechanical, subconscious. To where you never have to think about it. To where when you carry yourself, at first you'll be mechanical. You're just learning this. And you'll start looking at life strategically. And I'll give you some drills that will help center you and help focus you. That's what I give you as a trainer, is the tools to be able to really do this in the real world. Esoteric and vague concepts are very disturbing because they're frustrating and to me a waste of time. I want the real deal. Show me how to do it now. Now, the king, it's my eraser. Remember, the words of a king. Authority. You look like you know where you're going. Constitution. When you speak, it ends on a down note. Putting it down, that's the bottom line, the words of a king. You carry yourself with authority and with intention. You know where you're going. Now, one of the Chicago cops told me, and he had a bad beat. I mean, killings every day. He said the best thing you can do, if you're out in the park or something, you get approached by some thugs, is you look right here, right through them. Kind of over and through them like you're looking at someone behind them, and you keep walking. Does that make sense? Don't catch their eyes. Now that is perfect sense. When you have that authority, when you're not Bambi lost in New York City, you'll notice that. Try that sometime. If you've got bums, now I know the difference between homeless, people who are really homeless, and bums. I know the difference, okay? There are people who are genuinely down on their luck and have had hard times and have problems and they're on the street. And I understand that. And then there are bums. There are people who are out there who just want to be alcoholics and couldn't care less, right? Those are who I'm talking about, okay? So when you are approached, notice that when you walk downtown, if you have them in your area, notice if you just look at them, they'll come to you. But if you have a bearing, you look like we know where you're going, there's almost an authority. I call it polite like a police officer, okay? Polite like a police officer. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. You notice there's a certain detachment. There's a certain detachment. They can phase out. Does that make sense? And in the job of law enforcement, the worst thing that one could have would be to be emotionally directed by your emotions, which were all those states that I mentioned here earlier, right? Envy, anger, fear, okay? I'm sure you can read this, right? Okay. The police officer and you need to operate in a state of mushin, which is detachment. You got to be detached, or you'll get sucked in, you'll get killed. And zanshin, so alert you dominate. When I teach police officers, some do the interview stance, other teachers say, you know, you'll see a cop and he's talking like this, right on, right here. Tied up, be ready to be kicked in the balls. Now some will teach the interview like this, you're still tied up, okay? I say like this. Turned, okay? So my center line is protected, and then my hands are still up. I'm talking, or maybe I'm writing a ticket. My hands are up, why? So I can use them if I need to. And this is the same way in your mind. Your mental stance is the same way. You don't want to stand there open, wham, okay? You want to preserve your center line and keep your hands up. It's the same way. Do you see the martial arts correlation to what I'm talking about? And how you can use that as a tactical operating strategy, as a tactical operation, to where you do it so often that it just becomes subconscious. To where you do it naturally. That's the beauty. When you see an athlete out there, when you see Tiger Woods hit that perfect golf swing, just beauty, man. Goes a mile away and lands right in the hole. Or when you see a singer or a guitarist or a ballerina go out there and do this perfect performance. It's just that there's a natural beauty to it. They're just in the zone. How did they get there? Through the mechanical. Repetition is the mother of skill. So you'll need to go over this, and the more you study these concepts and the more you listen to my words as I speak about this, the more it takes root in your mind until it becomes, you start getting over here, and then you're in the zone. Subconscious. That's how you do it. Now, the king. The words of a king are constitution. You end in a down note. You carry yourself with authority and intention. Not only do you look like you know where you're going, but you really do know where you're going. Take time alone, any predetermined outcome that you want, you select it and you go. Then you can't be deterred. You can't be manipulated. You can't be taken advantage of. If you have an appointment, you have to be to work at 4 o'clock. And I say, come on, join me. Let's hit the golf course.